I'm Snow, and this is Gas and Go. Welcome to another episode of Gas and Go with Snow. I am here with my new friend Jim. Jim, first of all, hey, thanks for taking the time to do this, because this, for me, is a treat, right? I fancy myself a car guy, but you have told me more in the last 5 minutes than I ever knew about the Pontiac and the GTO and the history of it. But before we talk about that, tell me how you got this car. Tell me how long you've had it, and give me a little backstory on it.
Okay, the delivery was March 28th, 1964.
1964.
Yeah, the reason was I was going into my last semester of college, September of '63,
Right.
and I knew I needed a car, and I was getting married.
Okay.
So my wife-to-be and I started looking around for cars.
Okay.
We didn't really find anything I really wanted until the magazine articles about this came out, because of the fact that DeLorean snuck the thing out.
Right.
I saw those and told my wife, man, we got to check this out. We lived in the San Fernando Valley. So,
Well, hold on. I want to hear a little bit more about that story. Tell you what, let's sit down here and let's talk about what DeLorean did. How did he get it through?
So DeLorean, when they were first doing the 64 model testing early in '63, one of his engineers said the 389 was totally interchangeable. He could drop it in like an hour.
Yeah.
And
So the 389.
it was a 389. This is now a 434.
Okay.
And
So he put that big old motor in this little bitty car.
yes,
Okay.
and that's hence the muscle car. And the definition of the muscle car
Right.
was an intermediate car that had the large car engine.
Yeah.
Because people say they had faster cars earlier, and they did.
Right.
But it wasn't the same situation. Where
Yeah.
had a
They
big
just
size
hopped up
car.
the motor, whereas this was from the factory. You got the full-size car engine in a mid-size car.
Right.
Okay.
was-
And that, I've done a couple of videos and I've mentioned this before, and I said that's the birth of the American muscle car.
Correct.
Now, where it went from there, we all know, but this was the beginning of it. And that's why I have a term I always say. I say muscle car royalty. This is muscle car royalty. This, the 62 Chevy with a 409.
Yeah, exactly.
The Hemi Cuda,
Yeah.
right? You know, and so it's a wide berth. But all of those great cars
This triggered him.
started right here.
Yeah.
Now, one of the things that impressed me, though, you said you're the original owner.
Yep.
And then you showed me something. I'm going to take this out of here.
Sure.
Pontiac Oakland Club International, right? And it has Oakland in the symbol in the Pontiac. So initially I asked, is that Pontiac, is that in Oakland? And what was the...
Oakland was actually a car manufacturer.
a car manufacturer that was
Pontiac
purchased by Pontiac in 1926.
Well, I know it became all Pontiac in '26. I don't know exactly when they bought Oakland. I'm not sure. But the birth of Pontiac itself was in '26. It was the same year that Jim Wangers was born.
Yeah.
He was the big marketing guy for the GTO.
Well, now in here, you know, I want to cover this a little bit because, I mean, it's really nice in here. But I'm looking at the dash and I see the slight crack, which tells me
it needs to be redone.
No, it doesn't. This is it. No, I think you leave this alone because this looks like original instrumentation.
Yes, it
and
is.
Here, look at that.
Now that's a 65 clock, because they didn't do this till 65.
Okay.
64 was a 90-degree sweep tack, and it broke, so I put a clock in instead.
Okay.
Which is now broken.
Yeah, but it looks so
The rest
original.
it's all original except for this. Well, everything underneath.
Yeah.
I mean, the switches and stuff were all added for different things.
And
later.
factory 4-speed.
It was a factory 4-speed. Then they put a rock crusher in it. And
Oh, got the M22 Muncie, huh?
Now I got a 5-speed. When I broke first gear in the M22,
Yeah.
I said, what's wrong with this picture? So number one, I quit racing it.
Yeah.
And then later on, finally, I put a 5-speed in it, which I just love.
And the interior, I have a Magnum 6-speed in mine, right? And I got a 355 NASCAR motor in front of it, it's a screamer.
That's really the hot setup.
Yeah, it's nice. But this, I like the fact that you left this looking original.
You want to hear it?
Oh, yeah. Let's see what it sounds like. Oh, yes. You're talking my language now.
I thought it might be.
Go ahead, fire it up. Oh, she just kicked right over.
It's not too stock.
I'm guessing that's not stock. Okay, so now let me ask you. That's definitely not stock. What is that cam you got in there?
It's a 242, 248 at 50 hydraulic roller.
Okay, yeah. Go ahead and give her a little bit and then we'll cut her off. Oh, that is super responsive. Okay.
And that's a heavy flywheel. It'd be a lot more responsive if I could get by with a lighter flywheel.
So, what do you have for ignition and timing? Is that stock? It can't be. You got MSD in there or what?
I got an MSD 6T.
Okay.
And then a Mallory coil. But they're all separate pieces because back then they weren't integrated yet.
Right.
And actually, when I bought it, they didn't even have a rev limiter in the MSD. So I have an independent rev limiter. Then they came out with a 6AL later on.
Right. That's what I have. I have a 6AL.
I already had this, so there was no reason to upgrade.
Yeah. Well, let's check out the outside of the car, and I want to talk about this book.
Okay.
We've come around to the back of the car. We were checking out the body. We'll go around to the front here in a second, but this is something I thought we have to talk about. So tell me a little bit about this, Jim.
Over the years, finally, I thought since I do things like this, coming to Cruisin Grand, I thought it would be kind of nice to document the history of the car and have a book I could show people. So this was at the Embarcadero in San Diego, where Pontiac car dealer.
I know the area well. I was stationed down there in San Diego.
It's the back side of
right
Seaport
over by
Village.
Seaport Village.
Right.
Yeah.
Our next show, I think, is the 22nd at the same place.
And then, you know, a couple of things. I'm going to fast forward here, but it literally documents the history of this car. And now that Pontiac Club badge, initially it's supposed to go on the grill, right?
Right.
And you didn't put it on the grill because you didn't want to.
I just put it on the dashboard.
But what did you get that for?
For being an original owner.
For an original owner.
Now you had to prove to them I had to get insurance records and registration records because I had to show continuous ownership and registration and insurance license for the whole time that I had owned it, which now has been 60 years.
Wow, you've owned single owner for 60 years. But here, we're gonna fast forward. So we're gonna get to that 421 here in a second. But there's one picture in particular. Here we go. So look at this. So tell me about that picture right there, Jim.
Okay, that's my wife, who unfortunately is not with us anymore.
I'm sorry to hear about that.
And my daughter, who was born in December of '65. My point was, she was doing raspberries with her tongue, like a rectangle. And I was trying to get my wife to get her to do the raspberry, hence the puffball. And it turned out to be a great picture of my wife, which wasn't the intent. And look at the old car seat. No strap, no seat belt. It's got hooks that go over the bucket seats.
Oh, that is hilarious.
So you hit the brakes hard and automatically put your arm out so the kid didn't slide under the car seat.
Old school. And then what do we have here?
This was the first time I took the engine out when we lived up in Hawthorne, my kids again.
Okay.
And this was in '68 when we drove to Oklahoma. Those are my relatives in Sand Springs.
And looks like you got a lot of family history with the car.
This is my granddaughter and her husband, and she was raised with this car. So they were married on the base at Pendleton, and she insisted that I drive them from the wedding to the reception. And the car had a big problem. It's a long story. But I Band-Aided it and got it going, and it worked out.
All right.
They were happy campers.
There you go. All right. Well, hey, you know what? This is awesome right here. And this is one of the highlights. When I saw this, that's what made me look at the car in more detail. And then when you told me you were the original owner, that's when I figured, you know what? We have to document this.
All right.
You know, we needed to talk about this on Gas and Go with Snow. So now it's time to go to the crown jewel. Let's check out this 421. All right, Jim. We're going to talk about this motor here, but first, tell me about this. What do we got here?
Jim Wangler's was a good friend of mine, and in the end of his life, I took him around to a lot of his shows for presentations and stuff.
Okay.
And since I knew him so well, I never had him autograph anything. And finally, when he was in a memory care facility, I decided I better get him to sign it while he's still alive.
There you go.
And I just made it.
Okay. Well, I'm glad you got that. But tell me about this. I mean, man, this thing looks like a beast. And when you fired it up, immediately responded, and the throttle response is incredible. So what did you do to this to get the 421?
It's a complete hybrid, and it's actually not a 421.
Okay.
But that's a period correct emblem because they made 421s in '64, but not in GTOs. It's kind of like a 30 over 428. Okay. But all the parts are unique.
Yeah.
It's a 68 400 block because it's got smaller mains, so you get more web in the block.
Right.
That's 67 heads from a 67 GTO.
Okay.
66 tri-power because that's the biggest one that they made.
Right.
And then all the good forged parts inside, and roller rockers and roller lifters and all that.
So my understanding though was that, you know, the Pontiacs were kind of a drag strip nightmare because Pontiac was known for that long stroke. It made a lot of power. You didn't get the revs out of it, but you made a lot of torque.
Yeah.
That's what the Pontiac was known for.
You run out of breath.
So at a quarter mile, you better be done, huh?
Well, you just limit your RPM. You build the motor to what it wants, right?
Yeah. And so, well, you're a racer. My understanding is that at the end of the track, your motor should be giving you everything it's got.
Yep.
That's it.
The way I had this set up back in the day, for particular reasons, my red line was 6,400 RPM, and I went through the quarter at 6,400 RPM.
There you go. Hey, that's it.
That was with the rock crusher.
Yeah. Well, you know what? Hey, Jim, this has been a treat for me.
Talking to you.
And thank you for taking the time to do it. I really appreciate it.
Well, thank you for appreciating
Every day
the car.
is a school day, ladies and gentlemen. I will see you guys next time on Gas and Go with Snow.
Awesome. Thank you very much.
Thank you.